Most people believe that if a car reaches 100,000 miles, it's proven. For a long time, that was mostly true. Now, 102,000 miles can mean a $4,800 turbo replacement or a transmission that can't be rebuilt. Not because cars are worse, but because they're optimized for the warranty window. In this video, I'll show you what changed, why 100,000 miles doesn't mean what it used to, and the simple 10-second test that tells you whether it's a milestone or the start of the expensive curve. The 100,000 mile rule. For a long time, 100,000 miles wasn't a warning light. It was a badge of honor. If a car made it to 6 digits without scattering its transmission across the highway, it was considered proven. You'd survived the danger zone. From there, ownership wasn't about fear, it was about maintenance. And maintenance was predictable. Water pump at 120,000, alternator around 150,000. Starter starts clicking. Suspension bushings get tired. Annoying? Sure. Catastrophic? No. You replace the part, not the entire ecosystem. Engines ran with margin. Naturally aspirated, lower cylinder pressures. Cooling systems weren't engineered to the gram to hit emissions targets. Transmissions were rebuildable. A worn clutch pack meant new clutch packs, not a sealed unit headed for the scrapyard. Nothing was perfect, but it was serviceable. That's the key. Cars failed gradually, modularly, repairably. So if it made it to 100,000 miles, the assumption wasn't sell it. The assumption was good. Now it'll probably go to 200. That was the original 100K rule. And then the industry started optimizing. Now let's talk about what changed. The optimization shift. You'll hear it all the time. Modern cars are more reliable than ever. And early in life, that's often true. Fewer breakdowns at 20,000 miles. Fewer oil leaks at 40,000. Smoother drivetrains, better materials, cleaner engines. But that's only half the story, because the industry didn't just get better, it shifted what it optimizes for. Modern cars are engineered to dominate the warranty window. 3-year leases, 5-year loans, 60 to 100,000 mile powertrain coverage. That's the horizon. If the engine survives that stretch, it's a win, even if it becomes expensive at 110,000. That changes engineering decisions, and here's where people get confused. Early life reliability is not the same thing as long-term durability. They sound similar. They are not. This isn't incompetence, it's incentives, emission targets, fuel economy standards, manufacturing cost control. Those pressures reward efficiency inside the warranty wall. They don't reward 20-year ownership. So when a modern car hits 100,000 miles today, you haven't necessarily cleared the danger zone. You may have just cleared the warranty wall. And that's where it begins. Heat and turbo downsizing. The biggest physical change behind this shift is heat. Modern engines are smaller but more powerful. A 2.0-liter turbo today makes the power of an old 3.5-liter V6. That sounds like progress. And in many ways it is, but there's no free lunch in physics. To make that power, the engine runs higher boost pressure, higher cylinder temperatures, higher internal stress. Oil is thinner to reduce drag. Cooling systems are compact to save weight and improve efficiency. Everything operates closer to its ceiling. A naturally aspirated engine making modest power has thermal margin. It isn't constantly leaning on itself. A small turbo engine often is. And that's fine at 30,000 miles. It's fine at 60,000. It's usually fine at 90,000. That's the point. They're designed to clear the coverage window. But heat is cumulative. Over time, constant thermal cycling accelerates wear. Turbo bearings cook oil. Plastic cooling fittings harden and crack. Gaskets fatigue faster. Intercooler systems collect moisture and residue. Now picture this. 104,000 miles. No warning signs. Well maintained. The turbo wastegate actuator fails. It isn't serviceable. The entire turbo assembly gets replaced. Not because the engine exploded, because one heat-stressed component wore out inside an integrated system. That's rarely a $300 repair. It's a $3,000 to $5,000 repair. Again, this doesn't mean all turbos are bad. It means the thermal margin is thinner, and thinner margin changes what 100,000 miles represents. Direct injection and carbon buildup. Then there's direct injection. On paper, it's a win. Better fuel control, more power, lower emissions, improved efficiency under load. But it changed something subtle inside the engine. Older engines sprayed fuel over the intake valves. That fuel acted like a solvent. It washed oil vapor and residue away before it could harden. Direct injection sprays fuel straight into the combustion chamber. The intake valves never see it. So, over time, oil vapor from the crankcase ventilation system sticks to the valves and bakes under heat. Layer by layer, carbon builds. Nothing dramatic happens at 40,000 miles, usually not at 70,000 either. But somewhere between 80 and 120,000, you start seeing it. Rough idle, cold misfires, slight hesitation. Check engine lights. The fix isn't a bottle additive. It's labor-intensive cleaning, often walnut blasting, which means removing intake components and physically stripping buildup from the valves. That's typically several $100s, sometimes more. Not catastrophic failure, but it's not random either. It's predictable overhead. Direct injection isn't defective, it's just less self-cleaning over time. And when you stack thinner thermal margins with carbon accumulation, 100,000 miles stops being a finish line. It becomes the point where deferred physics starts sending invoices. Sealed assemblies and integration. Here's where the shift becomes expensive. Modern cars don't necessarily fail more often, they fail differently. Older vehicles were built around replaceable parts. A wheel bearing pressed out of a hub, a thermostat bolted onto a metal housing, a transmission you could open and rebuild. If one component wore out, you replace that component. Now many of those systems are integrated. Wheel bearing goes bad, you replace the entire hub assembly. Thermostat sticks, it's molded into a plastic housing with sensors attached. Transmission slips, it may be sealed, software locked, or not economically rebuildable. From a manufacturing standpoint, this makes sense. Integrated modules reduce assembly time, improve consistency, and lower production cost. But from an ownership standpoint, it changes the repair pathway. A $150 bearing becomes a $700 hub assembly. A $40 thermostat becomes a $400 module. A worn internal transmission component becomes a $4,000 replacement unit. Not because the entire system failed, but because it was designed as one piece. And here's the quiet part most buyers don't see. The vehicle can be statistically reliable through 80,000 or 100,000 miles. But once a single internal component inside a sealed assembly wears out, at 110,000 or 120,000, the cost jumps sharply. That's when 100,000 miles stops being proven. It starts meaning integrated. Electronics don't age like steel. Mechanical parts wear out gradually. Bearings get noisy, pumps leak, belts crack. You hear them coming. Electronics fail differently, and modern cars are full of them. Infotainment modules, digital gauge clusters, radar sensors for adaptive cruise, cameras for lane keeping, electronic steering racks, dozens of control modules talking over networks. Most of these work flawlessly for years. That's what makes this shift subtle. But electronics age through heat cycles and vibration. Solder joints fatigue, capacitors degrade, connectors corrode, software updates stack on aging hardware. There's no warning squeal. One morning, the screen stays black. The steering assist throws a fault. The parking sensors refuse to calibrate after a minor bumper tap. When a mechanical part wears, you often hear it first. When an electronic module fails, it's binary. It works or it doesn't. And the repair isn't mechanical. It's diagnostic time, module replacement, factory-level software calibration. A camera might cost $400. Calibration might cost another $300 to $600. An infotainment unit can run into four figures. An electric steering rack can cost $2,000. Again, this doesn't mean modern cars are unreliable. It means more of their long-term durability depends on components that don't behave like steel, gears, and oil. Steel wears slowly. Electronics fail suddenly. And after 100,000 miles, the probability curve starts shifting. Not dramatically, but enough that ownership stops feeling predictable. The resale cliff. Here's where the shift becomes visible in the market. Watch what happens to many modern cars right after 100,000 miles. The resale curve bends downward, not gradually, sharply. It's not because the car suddenly stops running at 100,001 miles. It's because buyers know what comes next. They start Googling in the dealership parking lot. How long do these turbos last? Is this transmission rebuildable? Does this engine have carbon buildup issues? How much is a replacement module? Complexity creates uncertainty. Uncertainty lowers bids. A simple, naturally aspirated engine with a conventional automatic feels predictable. Buyers assume maintenance. A highly boosted engine with sealed systems feels exposed. Buyers assume risk. And markets price risk fast. That perception alone can knock thousands off a trade-in the moment the odometer flips into 6 digits. Now add leasing to the equation. 3-year leases, 5-year loans. Owners exit at 60,000 or 75,000 miles. They never see the exposure phase. The second or third owner does. So when you're buying at 95,000 miles, you're not buying a proven car. You're often buying the first year outside the protection window. And that's the difference between durability and exposure. The exposure curve rule. Here's the clean way to understand it. The 100,000-mile rule used to measure durability. Today it measures exposure. Exposure to engines running closer to thermal limits. Exposure to integrated assemblies that can't be repaired cheaply. Exposure to electronics that don't age gradually. They just fail. Exposure to emissions-driven trade-offs that prioritize efficiency over margin. The shift isn't about failure rate. It's about cost slope. Older cars had flatter curves. Repairs showed up, but they were modular, predictable, absorbable. Many modern cars follow a different pattern. Calm early life, minimal drama through warranty. Then a steeper financial climb once something buried inside a complex system wears out. That slope is the exposure curve. And once you see it, the buying question changes. You stop asking, is this car reliable? And start asking, how steep is the cost curve after 100,000 miles? That question filters everything differently. Power, boost, integration, software dependence. Now let's make it practical. How do you spot a steep curve before you sign? How to use the rule. So how do you apply this without turning into a paranoid spreadsheet owner? You don't need to analyze every bolt. You just need to evaluate exposure. Here's the 10-second test. 1. Is the engine extracting big power from small displacement? If it's a 2.0 making V6 numbers, thermal margin is thinner. That doesn't mean it will fail. It means long-term stress is higher. 2. Are major systems serviceable or sealed? Can the transmission be rebuilt? Is the thermostat a simple housing or a plastic module with sensors molded in? Are wheel bearings replaceable individually or integrated into hub assemblies? Serviceable systems flatten the cost curve. Integrated systems steepen it. 3. How dependent is the car on electronic modules for basic operation? Not safety features, operation. Steering assist, throttle response, shift logic. The more software layers between you and the mechanical system, the more exposure after 100K. If the answer is yes to all 3, expect a steeper post-100K curve. If the answer is lean simple, the curve is flatter. This doesn't mean avoid modern engineering. It means match complexity to your time horizon. If you trade at 70,000 miles, complexity works in your favor. If you keep cars to 200,000, margin matters more than horsepower. And that's the shift the new 100,000-mile rule is pointing to. You're not buying features, you're choosing a cost curve. What this doesn't mean. This doesn't mean modern cars are fragile. Many will sail past 150,000 miles with nothing but routine maintenance. It doesn't mean turbos are ticking time bombs. It doesn't mean direct injection is a mistake. It doesn't mean electronics are evil. And it definitely doesn't mean you need to hunt down a 1998 sedan and pretend time stopped. The point isn't nostalgia, it's alignment. If you lease every 3 years, modern complexity is mostly upside. More power, better efficiency, more features. You exit before the exposure curve steepens. But if you're a long-term owner, the kind who expects 180,000 or 200,000 miles, you have to think differently. You're not just buying a car, you're choosing a cost curve. Some curves are flat and predictable. Some are calm early and steep later. The mistake isn't buying modern engineering. The mistake is assuming 100,000 miles still means what it used to. It doesn't measure durability anymore. It measures exposure. What you should know. So here's the practical takeaway. First, if you're shopping, stop asking, is this brand reliable? Start asking, how steep is this car's post-100K exposure curve? Second, if you plan to own long-term, Favor thermal margin and serviceability over peak horsepower and feature lists. Third, before you buy, look up the repair pathway. It's not just the failure rate. Is the transmission rebuildable? Is the engine heavily boosted? Are major systems modular or sealed? This avoids one costly mistake, assuming that modern automatically means durable. The old 100,000-mile rule meant you were safe. The new one means you're entering the exposure phase. And smart owners don't chase features. They buy margin.